Okay, here we go again. This section is called My Kids Stuff. Dad was a well-meaning tyrant. At least he told me he was well-meaning. Or at least we were supposed to think that if we were allowed to think anything at all. As a result, we didn't dare move or say anything in numerous situations like church, or we would get smacked, usually me. This is a repeating action by Big Jack. Belts were infrequent but regular. Little story, we went to the Grand Canyon as a family, all piled into the station wagon. Got there, we're at the visitor center, overlooking a view of the camera that's stretched all across the horizon. We were there, I'm gonna say, and I kid you not, 1 minute, and Dad says, "Okay, we've seen it, let's go." True. I tried out for third grade baseball. I got a dozen batting practice swings. I always hit to second base, and I'm talking always. The coaches said my future may be in golf, not baseball. Seriously, prescient. I got published for the first time in the Holy Cross grade school, damn cough, newsletter in 5th grade with my nom de plume, Homer the Pomer. And it was my famous Jug poem. Jug being detention. First line, jug, jug, jug or not, how many jugs have you got? I lost my brand new Holy Cross grade school navy blue winter stocking cap in 5th grade. It was in or under the bleachers, I'm sure. Knowing that Big Jack would beat me if he knew I had lost it, I took the honest path and lied that a big kid had taken it from me. Big Jack and I went with the principal to every room, 6th grade through 8th, to find that bully. Alas, no luck. Shocking. When I thought I was safe, a number of years into adulthood, I told them the truth. Hilarity ensued. This wouldn't be the first nor the last lie I would tell Big Jack out of self-preservation. And in a rare instance of humor, they gave me a navy blue winter stocking cap with HC in white letters for Christmas one year. 6th grade was, no kidding, the first time I didn't know something in school. I can see it like it's happening. I cried. Mrs. McManus comforted her protege. My laptop password is Mrs. McManus 3. Mrs. McManus loved me. My class had several days of shooting spitballs. They were all over the floor. I was the only brown noser who didn't join in. We had to make a political sign, also sixth grade, for the Nixon-Humphrey race. Mark Wegan, the kid presenting before me, had a piece of paper on which he had written in black marker, "This situation's bad, in need of fixing. Fixin'. Go to the polls, vote for Nixon." Mine was a multicolored poster board that said, "Humphrey Dumphrey sat on a wall. Humphrey Dumphrey had a great fall. More brown on my nose." Jay, another classic story, was teaching me how to hammer. Now, he built houses over the summer when he was in college, so he was Mr. Carpentry. I have a nail that I'm trying to put in, and literally I'm hitting it like this. Ting, 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 ting. He flew off the handle, grabbed the hammer, and drove in a 3-inch nail with one swing. The famous line is, "You better do well with your career, 'cause you're gonna be writing a lot of checks." Which turned out to be true, and turned out just fine. One afternoon, I suppose I was 10-ish, some neighbor kids and I were throwing a 1-inch diameter, 10-foot long pipe at an evergreen tree, taking chunks of bark out of it. A little javelin practiced. I proved amazingly adept, or maybe I was the only one doing javelin practice. A neighbor, Officer Hot Dog, his last name was Frankfurter, found out about it, inspected the damage, and tattled on me to Dad. Dad took me to the evergreens and asked, "Did you do this?" I said, "No." He said, "I'll ask the kids." I immediately said, "Yes." Yes, another smackdown. This one well earned. At age 14, my cousin, Monsignor Paul Witt, was ordained a priest. He had a reception following. There was a carafe of church wine on every table. I was seated with like-aged 14-year-old cousins. I drank our entire carafe, grabbed one off an empty table, and drank it too. My first time drunk. And when Monsignor gave his remarks, he congratulated me for having the best time of anyone there. Oddly, that, age 14, was the only time I drank till I turned 21, which was drinking age at that time. I later made up for that 7-year delay in spades. One that Mom would remember if she had a memory. I was shooting hoops on the driveway. Di was with me. She pissed me off. I punched her in the gut, and she flew back into this huge bush. Mom said, she won't be able to have babies. Yeah, she proved that wrong. Money, a recurrent theme. I was all about making a boatload and enjoying spending it. I've spent it both wisely and unwisely. Here's where I'm a little odd about money. I have always rolled up my toothpaste tubes so I didn't waste any. But I can go to a Van Gogh exhibition at the Mid-America Conference Center in Council Bluffs, decide it is magnificent, and immediately make the decision to fly to Chicago the next week and see a Monet exhibition done similarly. So, roll the toothpaste tube on one hand and piss away, I don't know, $1,500 on the spur of the moment on the other hand. My investments as a result have largely been in people, family, friends, coworkers. I have been called and been both generous and nuts. Give me about 15 seconds. I'm gonna let Tu and Griffin out. Go, Tu, go. And we're back. Professional quality stuff. Let's see. I've been called and been both generous and nuts. They're already in, that couldn't have amounted to anything. More professionalism, more hacking. I always liked having money, and so I started working a bit younger than most. When I was 5, Dad instituted an allowance. Every week, we got 15 cents. But a nickel of it had to go to church. So we netted a dime a week. That's partly why I'm really good at math. I figured out that was $5 a year. What a deal. Well, that wasn't gonna work for Phil, so I started making it my own work. I'm 5 years old. I make pot holders on a loom and sell them door to door. Well, even I was cute at 5 years old. So I had these moms, these homemakers, buying these things like they were going out of style. And I had like a restocking plan. I would come back 3 months, 6 months later, ask them how they were doing and whether they might need another one or two. I had an Omaha World Herald paper route. I had to get up by 4:30 in the morning every single day. And I suppose I did that a year or so, even through the winter. And the way you did that, I had like a Stingray bike, Stingray, which would mean nothing to you, short little bike with big old tall handlebars. Very popular at the time. I would tie my bag, canvas bag that held those newspapers, over the front of those handlebars and motor down the street. A little physical labor with dye, several of these. I raked leaves. I shoveled snow with her. I was probably 10 when I did those two. I caddied at Lincoln Country Club, which for me was snooty people, heaven on earth. I did that from ages like 12 to 14 or so. Caddies got to play the course Mondays till noon. I and my brother Bry would practically sprint around that course to get in as many holes as we could. When I was, 18, 20, somewhere in there, I said to myself, you'll be doing well if in your wallet you have a 20, a 10, a 5, and a 1. $36. CFO Services, me the lead on this one, had a client that was an insurance company, Zurich Insurance. Our first fee that they handed across the table to me was $195,000. Even better than that 36. When I was making $18,000 annually at the IRS, I was 25 years old. 18,000. I set 3 goals for making money. I wanted to make $100,000 by age 30, $250,000 by age 40, and able to retire at age 45. Beat the first, beat the second, beat the third. I started working at real businesses when I was 14. I worked at Red Rooster Red River Restaurant in the neighborhood, 2-3 blocks away, beginning at 14, bussing tables, clearing the plates and stuff. Dad gave me 2 choices because I was driving him out of his mind. Get a job or be executed. Then I had 6 years at Kmart, junior year of high school through senior year of college. I started as a stock boy and did that for 2 years. My last 4 years, I was a checkout supervisor, which was insane since I was only 18 when I started that. But, chicks dug me even back then. So I was kind of a logical choice for the job. Those college years, I worked 30 hours a week. I took 15 hours of classes a semester, considered full-time at that point, took summer school, 2 classes a summer, and as a result, graduated in 4 years with a 3.7 GPA in accounting. I caught my first girlfriend, Pam, there. Just a second here. I forgot a prop. So now, and for 40 years, every time I had to bake something that required vegetable spray, I would take out my Pam and I'd start faking crying and take a selfie of myself holding up this Pam and send it around to my brother and 3 sisters. I kid you not. Pam also had a famous lasagna. More about in my check section. Let's see, also at Kmart, I met girlfriend number 2, Dina, commonly called the Beagle, and then I met Mommy, Sherry Thornburg. My 2 buddies that I ran with during those years were Scott Cook, Jerry Lacey. I've been out of touch with them for years, but Cook's mom is a very good friend of mine who I see all the time. Hey! Griff, chewing on my script. This may take 7 months with the interruptions. Speaking of Pam, a story of love. She was the impetus for Big Jack's birds and bees education for me. Here it comes. In its full lengthiness. Don't get intimate. I knew how stupid that was back then. I'm going to tell you 4 stories about working at Kmart, and that's 4 of an incalculable number. First, when I hit 21, I did lots of beer drinking with Cook and Lacey. Usually pitchers of beer, each of us at Godfather's Pizza after closing at 10. They had a deal where you could get 2 pitchers on one night a week before 11 o'clock. So we made darn sure to get there by 11 o'clock, drank 2 pitchers each. There's a problem with that, you grandkids. Then we were off to a bar called Horse Feathers for a half dozen Black Russians, which were simply vodka with something called creme de cacao, or Keiko Ryan would know. The next day, I literally had alcohol poisoning. I laid in my bed covered with half a dozen for sure blankets and comforters shaking uncontrollably. It was so bad, neither of my folks bitched at me about it. We all thought I was gonna die. Secondly, when I was a stock boy, part of that job was to gather shopping carts. There was a Goodwill box in Kmart's parking lot. When it was crazy cold or raining, we hid in that box. Number 3, at Christmas time, when I was checkout supervisor, it wasn't unusual to have 20 gals, women, running a cash register at the same time. That kept me running. Let me see. I sent them on break, opened and closed registers based on customer volume, called for price checks, handled voided handled voided transactions, and a bunch of other things. The voids were a hoot. My hands had already started shaking. A void consisted of me writing on the receipt as it was going through the register. The way the register worked, it cut one off for the client. We kept one that went on a roll. So I'm signing these things. Oh my Lord. Didn't look like any kind of a signature. And my favorite story back then, the cellulose, which should be cellulite, football team. Kmart employed some interesting women, kind of a Walmart video's worth. And we didn't have just some, we had a bunch. My buddies, Cook and Lacey, put together a 4-page roster of these girls. They gave it to me in that Godfathers. It had the skills of each player, and it had the play-by-play of a game they played. I started reading it, screaming hysterically, and literally fell off my chair. Every line I read, I start screaming again on the floor, rolling around. I still think that's the hardest I've ever laughed. Can't imagine that changing. My biggest regrets from those high school years, which all tie together: no drama classes, no swing choir, no guitar or piano lessons. Me, Mr. Outgoing, charming, outgoing and charming. Peer pressure. I was a chicken shit mouse, low self-esteem. My jock buddies would have given me an ongoing raft of it if I had done any of the above and not been my beloved friends anymore. Today's Pappy Pops Phil would be all over all four and probably, okay, certainly pretty damn good at them. Shit. Di got me golfing at a little par 3 course in Lincoln, Jim Ager Memorial Junior Golf Course. I was in 5th grade, 10 years old. Bri and I were golf crazy. We played whenever I wasn't working, easily 10 rounds a week at that course. Mom and Dad were working, so we rode our bikes the 4 miles to the course, locked them up, played golf all day, rode them home. Gee, I was in pretty good shape back then. Like now, huh? I never had a golf lesson through high school and beyond. Thus, I probably didn't take advantage of my natural talent. Adam was treated better when he took it up, as you'll hear later. Oh, at Junior, back then, the Lincoln Journal-Star posted your scores if you were under 30. Par 3 times the 9 holes was 27 total. You had to be 29 or under. There were weeks that Brian and I would have 6 or 7 scores in the paper. And when I ran out of money to play for a short period of time, I used a jar full of wheat pennies that my dad had accumulated over years. I don't get that he never figured that out. He must have completely forgotten he had them, is the only thing I can figure. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today. The big course we played, the 18-hole par 72 course, was Holmes Park Golf Course. One day we were out there for 36 holes, totally sunny, 100 degrees. I burned my legs so badly I couldn't bend them for several days. I just laid there in bed and put lotion on them, which wasn't much help. Also, a classic at Holmes, I missed a putt on the 6th green. Screamed some obscenity and took my putter and buried it in the green. Well, not what you're supposed to do. And the second it went in that green, the head of maintenance on that golf course went, "Hey!" Well, I was banned for a week, which I thought pretty good deal. I won a 2-day tournament at Junior Golf. It was called the Scratch and Scramble. I was the scratch player in my twosome. There were about 60 participants. My partner, Mr. Scramble, was a kid named Randy Graffentine, who became a huge producer at Split End for Lincoln East High. I shot 1 under par over 2 days to win it. Sadly, then I choked. There was a playoff for some reason. I had a 6 on the par 3 first hole. I'm real sure I didn't have anything over a 4 in those 2 days, or I couldn't have shot 1 under. A 6. So we lost the playoff. Graffentine, who had been about 25 over, bitched at me about the choke. I think my 1 under got us into the playoff, not the 25 over. I've written down here, prick. For years, there was a plaque at the course on the wall touting me as the first medalist in the annual tournament. Brian and I played in something called the father-son tournament. We had a chance to win that. Had 2 holes left, 8 and 9, but I dunked one into the water on the 8th hole. Back then I hit a shot that went right to left, a draw, overdrew it, right in the water. To this day, Bry blames himself for us losing because he had a bad shot at number 7. We were alternating shots, and it put me in a position of driving off the tee on number 8, which he should have been doing because he didn't have that right to left thing. I totally blame him. I played in the Lincoln Men's City Tournament. It was held at all 4 courses around at each, including the last at Lincoln Country Club, where I had caddied all those rounds. I was 1 under par through 11 holes. Once again, I choked and finished 4 over, a 76. Still the 4th best round of the day. Bry even caddied for me. I caddied for the son of the pro at Holmes Golf Club. He actually went on to play and win twice on the Nike Tour, what it was called back in the day, the level just below the PGA Tour, obviously due to my tutelage. As a sophomore at Lincoln Pius X High School, I was number 1 in scoring on the team by a moonshot. But Coach Vince played me at number 2, so I didn't get a big head and crushed by the 3 seniors who were on the team. Hold tight. Okay. Eric's middle name is Vincent, after that golf coach, Vince Aldrich. He gave me the famous "You're walking too slow" lecture. Yes, bad grammar. You wouldn't believe how many times that has run through my head. It's almost the last page of this treatise, and I will read that. I did win a couple of golf tournaments back then. The first one at junior, already mentioned, the Grafentine Open. And as a high school senior, I won the York Invitational, a 48 player event, shot a 76 in absolutely horrible condition. And I'm like halfway done with my up to college years. I'm 40 minutes into it. I'm gonna kill it there and finish at another